Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. Now after what has felt like an eternity since it was originally announced, Wonder Woman 1984 is finally going to be released. Obviously I'm not going to get into the technicalities of if you're going to watch it at streaming or cinemas or the dates and the international things like that. That's something that you can very easily Google. But maybe you've just finished watching that movie and you're now wondering how you can get some more of your Wonder Woman fix. So I'm here today with a list of suggestions of stuff that you can read or stuff that you can watch that can help you learn a bit more about Diana of Themyscira. And full disclosure, this list is in no way comprehensive. There's always going to be more stories that people might recommend, and this is also a list that I've asked for the opinions of other people on so that I can get a wider range of stories. Some of these admittedly I haven't read or watched yet, but let's make it a little bit of a game show and see if you can guess which ones they are. Starting off this list is going to be Wonder Woman by George Perez, and in particular the Gods and Mortal storyline. This came out in the 80s when they were resetting the continuity for quite a lot of characters, so this was the perfect jumping on point for Wonder Woman. If I'm being honest, for a modern reader, any of the stories before here probably won't appeal to you because they are quite wordy and they do lack the action that modern comics do. But George Perez has a very acclaimed run on Wonder Woman, and a lot of the storylines and the designs that he had for his characters throughout seem to be the inspiration for the Wonder Woman 1984 movie. So the first couple of issues of this are what I'm really recommending, but if you enjoy it past that, there's about 3 omnibuses worth of content that you can get into. And throughout this time you see a great development of Diana, you see how she works on Themyscira and also on Earth, and this all builds up into an event that was called War of the Gods, which is still quite acclaimed to this day. So it may be the case that despite the fact that you've watched the Wonder Woman movies, you may not feel like you know enough about it to jump into the comics, or Wonder Woman God and Mortals would be the perfect jumping on point for you. My second suggestion is going to be one of the most recent runs, and it's the Wonder Woman New 52 run by Brian Azzarello. Now yes, I do have to admit that it isn't archetypal Wonder Woman, and it is a bit of a darker character. She seems a bit more brooding and she is a bit more rough in the way that she does things, and it is more of a story focused entirely on gods, and it's also got like kind of a crime noir feel to it. But that might be the perfect thing for you if you've never read anything of Wonder Woman before. You might not want to jump into a run where you're already expected to know exactly how she works in this universe, and in that case the New 52 is a perfect modern jumping on point. The art was also done by Cliff Chang, so it's bright, it's vibrant, but at the same time it's got a great way of conveying the story and it never takes away from the action that's happening. I think this is a great jumping on point, even though some people might disagree with it, but because of the fact that the New 52 was entirely about bringing new readers into this universe, why wouldn't this be the perfect jumping on point? Now my next recommendation is one of my favourite books of all time, but it's more of a soft introduction into Wonder Woman. It's DC The New Frontier by DARWYN COOKE. Now yes, Wonder Woman doesn't have a massive role in this, but you can see how she operates and how she works within the DC universe. Because I'm suggesting this for people who maybe haven't read any DC comics before, because there's those that are going to be introduced solely through Wonder Woman. In that case, why not read a story that features Wonder Woman sort of in the background, but at the same time you get introduced to all these other big figures within the DC universe. And if I'm being honest, this is just damn good storytelling, and it's one of the best stories that came out in the past 20 years. So if you're going to read any comic and put all your hopes of liking comics in general into one story, the best bet's probably going to be DC The New Frontier. Like I said in this video, I'm trying to get a range of different stories so I can cater for near enough everybody that's looking for a new Wonder Woman story, and in that case I think it'd be stupid of me to write off the fact that DC The New Frontier does actually tell a really good story with Wonder Woman in it. It's just the case that she isn't the main focus of that story. Next up I've got the 2009 DC animated movie Wonder Woman. There is a lot of similarities between this and the Wonder Woman movie that came out a few years ago, and obviously this also is loosely based on the Gods and Mortal storyline that I recommended earlier. But it might be the case that you don't want to jump into a comic just yet and you want to refresh your knowledge of who Wonder Woman is. Although this Wonder Woman film is kind of bare bones, it is pretty enjoyable, but I haven't really seen it in a few years. But obviously if you've watched the first Wonder Woman film, you pretty much know the story of this. So Steve Trevor crashes on Themyscira, then all of a sudden Wonder Woman has to escort him across to Earth so that she can help stop some kind of evil plan that Ares is devising. But with this you have a lot of the Wonder Woman lore that the movie had to forget. Like you've got the invisible jet, Cheetah shows up as just a casual villain rather than being the centerpiece of the main film, and it is effectively an origin story about who Wonder Woman came to be, but it doesn't really delve into all the stuff with the war or anything like that. And obviously you see more on Themyscira about what she had to do in order to be assigned the role of escorting Steve Trevor back to Earth. So although I don't think this is the end goal, I think this is great if all you've seen so far is the Wonder Woman movies and you're not too sure yet if Wonder Woman comics are for you. Next up is another animated movie in case you don't just want another origin. It's Wonder Woman Bloodlines. This is the most recent one that came out, and you can see some obvious improvements from the first film that they did about 10 years ago. But again, this also revolves around Steve Trevor crashing on Themyscira and Wonder Woman having to deal with the consequences of that. It would be really great if we could see some kind of Wonder Woman movie that didn't solely rely on Steve Trevor, because it looks like even Wonder Woman 1984 is doing that. But Steve Trevor's kept prisoner because he's broken the no man rule that Themyscira has. Which is weird, because I thought that was a rule that only only the Huffington Post had. But Wonder Woman decides to break him out because of the fact that she can see that there's this Earth-ending plot that's going to happen if she doesn't do it. Admittedly, you may be able to tell that this is one that Ed recommended to me and I haven't actually watched yet. But regardless, I've heard that this is a really good film, the action's great in it, and it's just something that can help top up people if they are looking for another Wonder Woman fix. Again, this might be something that helps you branch into the comics if it is that you don't want to take that jump just yet, so it might be the case that you want to watch Wonder Woman Bloodlines. The next thing that I'm going to recommend to you is a crossover, and it's Trinity by Matt Wagner. This was only about 3 or so issues and it came out a good number of years ago, but it's effectively just a story about Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman working together. There was also a weekly series under the same name that I think was written by Kurt Busiek and it was done by Mark Bagley, the art was. But regardless, the one that I'm recommending, it's a much smaller version of it and it's just a really nice, clean story about these 3 characters working together. Because it may be the case that you're a die-hard Batman fan, or maybe you're really invested in Superman and Wonder Woman's that character that you've neglected so far. And maybe now you're in a position where you're looking for that last third of the Trinity, and the best way to do that would be to ingratiate yourself into the entire trio. This was one of the first stories that I read featuring Wonder Woman because of the fact that it was in one of my local libraries. So this is something that has been readily available and I just think it's really enjoyable. It's quite short so you don't have to worry about one of these runs that's going to continue for years and years, but it's also going to do a really good job of introducing you to this character and also showing you some familiar faces. Now whilst we're on the topic of some of the first stories that I read featuring this character, well, the first Wonder Woman story that I actually read was Superman's Sacrifice, and I don't think this is the easiest thing for new readers to get into, but it somehow worked for me. This was a prelude to Infinite Crisis, and if you don't know anything about Wonder Woman comics, I'm really not going to start talking to you about that now, but Superman's Sacrifice was a story before that, and it saw Wonder Woman dealing with the ramifications of the no-kill rule that many of the DC characters hold. So what it did is it boiled Wonder Woman down to the core of her character and if she really believes in these values and what lengths she'd go to avoid not doing that. But I know some people hate this on principle because of the fact that it broke the no-kill rule that these characters have. For me, I think if the story that you're telling is about that and you're actually saying something about the no-kill rule rather than them just killing to suffice the story, I think it's okay, and that's why I quite enjoyed Superman's Sacrifice. Although for me, I'll never understand why this wasn't called Wonder Woman's Sacrifice. Now we're probably about halfway through this list and hopefully you're enjoying it, even though I don't have that expert knowledge that you're probably looking for. But if you are enjoying it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button down below and the bell notification next to it so that you never miss a video. Now my next recommendation is one that definitely spoke to me. It is Wonder Woman Conan. This was written by GAIL, who also did quite a good run on Wonder Woman in general, but that kind of happened in the middle of a run that was happening before it, so I can't really recommend that too much for new readers. But Wonder Woman Conan is exactly what it says on the tin. Maybe you're like me and you've idolised Conan the Barbarian since the second that you watched it at an age that you probably shouldn't have done. Well, in that case, why not read something that crosses over with the character that you try and get into? And this is great because you don't realise how many similarities Wonder Woman and Conan the Barbarian actually have. It's just their approach to situations that changes them. They're both from cultures that live amongst war and believe in training yourself to the maximum level just so you can take on any enemy at any time. They're both relentless and they're both willing to die in the heat of combat. So it's a pretty short run. I think it was about 4 or so issues, but then obviously if you do like the style of writing, you can get into GAIL Simone's run on Wonder Woman. But for me, if you're trying to get into comics and you aren't really invested in them just yet, you need to read something that's fun so that you realise the potential of this medium. And crossovers are normally the best way to do that, so why not throw Wonder Woman together with someone like Conan the Barbarian and just see how it works, because in this case, it does. Next up, we've got Wonder Woman by Phil Jimenez. This seems to be a run that's often forgot about because obviously you've got stuff like George Perez, you've got Brian Azzarello, but the Phil Jimenez run seems to be stuck in the middle somewhere. Obviously you've got people like William Mesner-Loebs who wrote it as well. I've heard that that's pretty good, but I haven't heard enough to say that it's great for new readers. But the reason why I'm recommending the Phil Jimenez run, even though the fact that it isn't a reboot or anything like that, is because of the fact that it's so involved with the DC universe. This should pretty much be called Wonder Woman and Company because you've got Wonder Woman helping out Batman, and then obviously you see her take on Batman's Rogues Gallery. You also see Wonder Woman interact with Lois Lane, and then Superman's involved in it. This one went on for about 2 or so years, but it managed to do a lot in the time that it had. And again, similar to what I was just saying about Wonder Woman and Conan, you need a book that's just going to make you realise how much fun comics are and why you should keep reading them. Something like this and seeing how she interacts with the DC universe is the perfect opportunity to do that, which is why it's making it onto this list. Next up, I'm going with another animated series that had a profound impact on me when I was growing up, and that is the Justice League series. This came out at the height of the DC animated boom, so obviously Batman the Animated Series was doing madness. You also had Batman Beyond, you had a great Superman series, but the Justice League series was the one that I really enjoyed when I was growing up. And I always remember Wonder Woman being one of my favourite characters, but with something like this and you've got that massive roster of the team, you're going to have a revolving cast, so some episodes are going to focus on Wonder Woman and sometimes she's just going to be more in the background background, and then sometimes she's going to be integral to the team unit. The art style in this, which is based on Bruce Timm's work, is also something that I feel is very accessible to near enough anyone. So this has been recommended for people who maybe don't want something short like a DC animated movie, they want something more long strand, but maybe they don't want to get into comics. Don't know what the percentage of people in that bracket actually is, but still I'm going to put it on this list. And you know what, I'm actually half tempted to go back and watch a lot of these animated series and do reviews on them and see how they hold up as introduction to these characters now. But for me, this was a massive part of my childhood, so of course I'm going to recommend it on here, and hopefully it will help you to understand Wonder Woman a bit better. Now, when I do these where to starts, I often recommend something that's a bit off the beaten track, maybe an Elseworlds tale or something that's set out of continuity. The one that I've heard nothing but positive things about recently and that I still need to get my hands on is Wonder Woman Dead Earth. This sounds really promising for new readers because of the fact that it's set 100 or so years after the main continuity of the DC universe. So Wonder Woman wakes up from pretty much the longest nap that anyone's ever had, and she realises that the world is completely in ruins. This sounds like the equivalent of TMNT The Last Ronin or the Logan movie of Wonder Woman. The art's also quite abstract, it's not something that you'll often see in other comics, and it's a more personal story about Wonder Woman and the reason why she feels this need to protect Earth. And with these characters, it's always best to put them in situations where the thing that they are fighting from has been taken away from them, because then you'll really see who that character is. When they've got nothing left to work for, who do they become? And that's why I'm putting Wonder Woman Dead Earth on this list. And hopefully that wasn't too generalised. When I do get the book and read it, I'll probably do a review as well, so subscribe so that you don't miss that. We're coming into my final 3 recommendations, and I couldn't really do this list without putting Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka on it. This is the first one that he did before Flashpoint and the New 52, and it explores the majority of the DC universe. But it's also got quite a quirky tone that reminded me a lot of She-Hulk. So you see her going up against Medusa, she has a lot to do in Gotham City, and she also writes a book about her life that also then gets her in trouble with the Olympian gods. And if you follow this run through, it's got ties with Infinite Crisis and Blackest Night, and there's also been a deluxe edition that's recently come out of part of this, which also takes on Batman because of the fact that she's now having to look after this girl in Gotham City. But it's just like her interactions with the Justice League in this are great as well, and you see her rogues gallery crop up throughout it. So I think if you know a little bit about Wonder Woman and maybe just a smidge about the DC universe, you can read this run and get a really unique take on it and get some interesting Wonder Woman stories that haven't really been tried before. And you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds great, is there an omnibus of it? No. And the next recommendation that I'm going to give you is Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka, but from the Rebirth era. Yes, after quite a few years of not being on the title, Greg Rucka came back to it at a time when the universe was resetting itself so that new readers could jump into it. Because of this, the Rebirth line of Wonder Woman is probably more accessible to a new reader than the original Greg Rucka line that came out, because of the fact that this contains Wonder Woman Year 1. Now, if you're looking to buy this series properly, don't get the Wonder Woman Year 1 Deluxe because it's included in the Wonder Woman Rebirth Deluxe Edition Volume 1. So you are just going to end up double dipping there. But I read the first chunk of this story when it was coming out in single issues, and it's just written really well. So of course you're flashing back and you're seeing how she was dealing with herself as she was learning her powers, how she first met Steve Trevor and stuff like that. But then you're getting a story set in the modern day, and if I remember correctly, it was like a lasso of truth stopped working or something. And stories like that are really good because you see how the character operates when they don't have any of the tools that they're used to using. It's pretty much the equivalent of a story where Thor doesn't have his hammer or Daredevil actually has his vision. But Wonder Woman Rebirth and any of the Rebirth titles from the DC Comics is the perfect jumping on point for any character that you want to get into. It is a time that was meant for new readers, and maybe you actually want to get into the mix of reading Wonder Woman as it's coming out. The best way to do that would be to start here and follow on from there. Actually, I know I said I only had 3 suggestions left, but I'm going to throw in a random one here, and it's pretty much new enough any Justice League story that features Wonder Woman. So this one right here is the New 52 series by Jeff Johns. You've got this one here that features Wonder Woman and it's written by Grant Morrison. Here's another one that features Wonder Woman and it's written by Brad Meltzer. But my point is that there's a lot of titles that feature Wonder Woman in it that can do just as good of a job of introducing you into that character as one of her own solo series. She's such a prominent and integral figure within the Justice League that it makes sense that if you're trying to get into this character and maybe you know all the other characters, maybe you've seen the Justice League movie and you're one of the only people who actually likes it, that's an option worth knowing that you've got, that you can read a Justice League story and see if you can learn more about the character that way. My final recommendation is one of the more classic runs, and it's Wonder Woman by John Byrne. John Byrne is pretty much the king of getting people into comics because he wrote Man of Steel, he pretty much created She-Hulk into the character that she is today, and even has some involvement with the first couple of issues of Hellboy. And although it seems that his Wonder Woman runs isn't one that's held in particularly high acclaim, I think it is good classic storytelling. You need to know a little bit about the universe before, but John Byrne just has a way of taking you on a journey and you don't really care about the questions that you're asking, because this delves quite well into the gods that often crop up throughout these stories. So obviously Zeus has quite an involvement with Wonder Woman, and at one point he even changes who she is as a character and someone else has to assume the role of Wonder Woman. So with these stories you're often finding out how this character sees their own identity. How does the superhero persona that they've taken on actually define who they are? This run in particular will show you a lot more of the wider universe that surrounds Wonder Woman. So obviously you've got Donna Troy, who's Wonder Girl, and there's other characters that are integral to her that often don't get featured in movies and stuff like that do crop up throughout it. So as a learning experience, I think John Byrne is one of the best ones that you can have, but I think that there's quite a wide variety of Wonder Woman stories that you can read because she's been around for nearly 100 years. That's kind of insane, and if you're looking to get into this Wonder Woman character, I think there has to be at least something on this list that is going to help you, whether it's a book or an animated movie or a TV show. But that's where I'm going to leave my list, and I am hopefully going to be doing a review of Wonder Woman 1984 when it comes out next week, so we'll get that out to you as soon as I can. Click the bell notification so that you know as soon as it comes out. But obviously there's so many stories that involve Wonder Woman that I want your recommendations for new readers. What is the one story that you would recommend to somebody that's trying to get into this character? And also, are you looking forward to the new movie that's coming out? Put it in the comment section below and we can discuss it further there. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like this video, why did you get this far? Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and like I just said, click the bell notification so that you never miss a video. Follow me on some of my social media links. I'm always trying to put as much comic content on there as I can, and I also try and put polls on there so that you can actually influence the videos that come onto this channel. But if you do want to support the channel, it is greatly appreciated. All I'll ask is that you treat yourself to a book or a movie, maybe one of the Wonder Woman things that I've recommended in this video, but all I'll ask is that you use one of the Amazon affiliate links down below. I can't see any of your details, it doesn't increase the price, it just means that eventually there's going to be some money coming into this channel, and hopefully I can buy a new camera, and hopefully learn how to shave. Like some of you pointed that out in my last video. Yes, I horrifically cut myself while shaving, but you saw how gross the hair on my face was before, so I didn't really have too much of a choice. But that's the video, and I've got nothing else to say except for to stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof, see you at the next video.